Happy Easter, everyone. I see that you're all dressed up in your spring finery in honor of what was once called Ostra. Did you know that Ostra was the Anglo-Saxon fertility goddess? Well, in Patricia Motley's book, In Nature's Honor, she explains that the goddess Ostra was represented by a hare or a rabbit because of their ability to produce as many as 600 offspring over a lifetime. An apt symbol for the springtime outpouring of nature, and a prolific symbol indeed, if you ask me. What's more, many of us, as while we see a man in the moon, many around the world look up and see a rabbit. And so the celebration on the first full moon after the vernal equinox is Ostra's festival. So Easter is actually rooted in an ancient pagan festival. Here's a myth that I love. It goes, in some stories, the goddess assumes the shape of a hare to traverse the land and renew it. In others, she is attended by hares, and some claim the goddess Ostra changed a bird into a hare, and this hare builds nests and fills them with colored eggs. And yes, thus we have the Easter Bunny. In her book, Wheel of the Year, Pauline Campanelli speculates that early hunter-gatherers, after the deprivation of winter, in fact went on egg hunts in the springtime to supplement their diets with birds' eggs, and that people may have first learned to build baskets by watching birds build nests. So thank you, nature. We Unitarian Universalists view Easter in a variety of ways. One is by looking at the ancient roots of the celebration, like I just described. Another is by considering the Christian Easter story. Whatever his true nature, it is undeniable that Jesus had a gift of spirituality, as well as the ability to convey that to large groups of people. However, the local Roman magistrates found that talent of him very threatening. Fearing that he was gathering too many followers, they had him arrested, tried, and executed. Then he was allowed to be buried according to Jewish custom. Did he rise again following his burial? Well, certainly there are Christian UUs. Most UUs don't take that as the literal truth. Most UUs attribute the story of his resurrection to overly distraught or highly devoted followers who claim to have seen, spoken, and even eaten with him, rather than a belief in his bodily resurrection. Unitarians of the 1800s separated from their mainstream clergy colleagues over at least two doctrines. One was the difference of belief in the Trinity, with the Unitarians arguing for the unity of God. The other was regarding the nature of Jesus, whether he was human or divine. The Unitarians came down on the side of Jesus' humanity, that he was fully human and no more or less divine than the rest of us. But that leads to a third UU approach to Easter and resurrection, and that is looking at resurrection as a metaphor, the kind of metaphor described in our meditation. I think that's a resurrection that we can all believe in, the coming back to life of dormant nature after the dark, cold winter, especially in harsher climates. We Californians have it pretty nice throughout the year, But even we can see new blossoms and burgeoning growth that arrives in the spring. And we can believe in our own resurrection. When we go through a period of grief or loss, who among us has not experienced the loss of a job, the heartbreak of divorce, or a ruptured relationship with a friend or family member, the death or separation from a loved one? When you came back from that experience, did it feel like you had been reborn, coming back to the land of the living? Were your heart and soul revived? Maybe you're still there in the depths of it and wondering if you'll ever feel good again. There are those here among us who have felt that, and we are here to testify that yes, it can be done. We're here to share your challenge and to offer you our strength and our faith in the future. Maybe today you can begin to imagine coming forth from that cave. Of course, today is also the last day of Passover, which is a celebration of liberation. The way we Jews generally look at Passover is through that lens of liberation. Passover is the seminal story for the Jewish people with a deep, sacred, and ethnic significance. The story of the Israelites who had been enslaved for 400 years by the Egyptians and their escape from slavery, how they were guided by Moses with the help of God. It's a story of courage, leadership, faith, and importantly, of freedom. This story, too, has been used as a metaphor. For African Americans escaping slavery, it was central to the struggles of American civil rights era. It has been used in feminist circles and for political prisoners. We could use it today as we advocate for the United States government to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia from the horrendous prison conditions in El Salvador. And we can also use this metaphor on a personal basis, as a metaphor for our own liberation. What does liberation look like for you? Do you need to be liberated from self-limiting thoughts or old relationship wounds? Is there an addiction for you or a loved one are struggling with? Maybe it's a matter of replacing negative messages with loving self-care. Perhaps there's a need to get help of a recovery community or a professional. One of my favorite poets, the late John O'Donohue, offers us this Easter blessing, a blessing both of liberation and resurrection. He wrote, "On this Easter morning, let us look again at the lives we have been so generously given, and let us fall away the useless baggage that we carry, old pains, old habits, old ways of seeing and feeling, and let us have the courage to begin again. Life is very short, and we are no sooner here than it is time to depart again, and we should use the full time that we still have. We do not realize all the good we can do. A kind, encouraging word or a helping hand can bring many a person through the dark valleys of their lives. We weren't here to make money or to acquire status or reputation. We were sent here to search for the light of Easter in our hearts. And when we find it, we are meant to give it away generously. May the Spirit and the light of this Easter morning bless us all, Watch over us and protect us on our journey. Open us from the darkness into the light of peace and hope and transfiguration. I find myself wishing for the transformation and resurrection of the people in Washington, D.C., who are dismantling our social, cultural, educational, and democratic institutions. I can't help but yearn for them to be liberated from their negative worldview into a new, more compassionate level of understanding. And speaking of transformation, as Earth Day approaches, you don't need me to tell you that our Earth is being transfigured right before our eyes. We all know that climate change is upon us, hotter days and a longer fire season, not to mention wildly different rain and drought patterns, the extinction of species. It's heartbreaking to know that we could have prevented this, and for so many years did nothing. We need to repent and not to turn away. In his book, Awe, The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life, Dr. Keltner reports that while walking through the beautiful hills on the outskirts of Paris in 1749, the French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau was contemplating this question: has the progress of science and arts done more to corrupt morals or to improve them? Keltner suggests that had Rousseau been alive today, he might have phrased the question differently. He might have asked, have globalization and capitalism lifted up our quality of life or paved the way for our demise? Keltner says, contemplating that question knocked Rousseau to the ground. He sobbed uncontrollably. He was shaken by an epiphany. The much-hyped promise that the age of enlightenment, of science, industrialization, formal education, and expanding markets was a lie. It was destroying the soul of humanity. It was a companion of the systems of slavery and colonization, and a cause and rationalization of economic inequality. It was decimating the forests of Europe, polluting its skies, and filling its streets with filth, and smothering the wisdom of emotion. In that experience, Romanticism was born. Romanticism served as a foundational influence on the Unitarian Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalist movement. We UUs have been heavily influenced by both the Enlightenment and the Transcendentalists, having a rational worldview and finding spirituality in the wonders of nature. Gary Snyder is a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet and has been an environmentalist for probably going on 70 years. When he was interviewed, Snyder was asked, what do you say to us now that there's global warming and climate disruption and the loss of species and all the things that you've been warning us about and writing about for so many years with such passion? Do you have any advice for us as you look back? He replied, don't feel guilty. If you're going to save the world, it has to be because you love it. It's not out of guilt, not out of your anger, not out of your outrage, because that's part of what actually polarizes us and makes it worse. The only force that can combat the forces of greed and hatred and ignorance is the force of people who aren't afraid to love. And if you're going to save it, love it. Don't feel guilty, but tend it. It's your garden. So after the service, I'm going to ask you to help tend our garden. We have little peat cups up here, and I'll invite you to each take one and go offer some nourishment to one of the plants in our native garden that Phoebe tends so well on our behalf. We'll sing our closing song outside. Anyway, do you know who tends their proverbial garden? The Yurok tribe of Northern California. They tend and affected the Klamath River restoration. Amy Bowers Cordalis, former general counsel for the Yurok tribe, was ecstatic when during this year's Bioneer Conference, she recounted what happened when 4 dams on the Klamath River were removed after 122 years. The Klamath flows through Northern California before entering the Pacific Ocean. Before the dams were built, the Klamath was the 3rd largest salmon-producing river in the lower 48 states. Tragically, in 2002, the Klamath River suffered from the largest fish kill in American history, when 70,000 adult salmon died because of excessive diversion of water for agriculture. This massacre inspired Cordalis to go to law school and to devote her life to preventing this harm from happening again. She became the Yurok's general counsel in 2016. At that time, the salmon runs on the Klamath were down to single-digit percentages of what they had originally been. The river was sick and polluted, as were her peoples. Without the salmon, the tribe would perish. So they launched a movement to undam the Klamath that led to one of the largest dam removal projects in world history, a truly massive undertaking. On October 2nd, 2024, Governor Newsom announced that all the dams had finally been removed and that the resurrection of the Klamath occurred ahead of schedule. Salmon that had not been able to swim upstream for over 100 years had returned. Her elders told Cordalis that to create change, you have to see it first. You have to believe in it. That revolution starts with a change in consciousness. And here's a meditation that I'd like us all to engage in as well. She led this for the conference participants. And she asked us to please start by putting our hands on our hearts and to get comfortable, to breathe in and to breathe out. And now picture yourself on the Klamath River. Maybe you're in a boat, maybe you're on shore. You're comfortable. There's nothing you need to do. You just witness the river. There's a myth, she says, that the sun and the moon are lovers. The dawn is their favorite time because they are together in the sky. And the new day is their baby. It is a gift to us. That's why it's called the present. We must be thankful for the present, to honor the sun and the moon and the power of love. We will forgive the past by giving up the hope that it could have been different. We will let go of the burden of the past. This allows us new space in our hearts and in our minds for new energy, new ideas that lead to a new future. In this new space, I want all of us to be in the present, full of gratitude for the opportunity to gather and to learn how we will collectively renew the world, a new future. So breathe it in. So end her words. Cordalis and her people caused the resurrection of the Klamath River in less than 10 years. It's remarkable. And salmon who have not been to the top of the river for over the 100 years are returning. There are countless numbers of earth restoration projects around the world. Instituto Terra in Brazil, restoring land that was previously used for cattle ranching. Lowe's Plateau watershed in China, revitalizing former agricultural land. Mossy Earth, rewilding with projects in Europe, Africa, and the US, reforesting in Iceland, planting trees, gardens, and parks in New York City. Florida is undertaking a large-scale project to restore the Everglades, one of the world's largest environmental restoration projects. So many humans following in the footsteps of the goddess, traversing the land, being liberated, and acting on their belief in resurrection. So may it be.